so today I'm going to be talking about stretching your ears and everything that goes along with stretching your ear. This has been a very much requested video, so I thought I would finally do it, and yes. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is kind of my little background, and I've been stretching my ears for a few years now, I think between 4 and 5 years, and I am currently at 3/4 of an inch. So I have stayed at this size for about a year, maybe a little longer, and then I think I was a 0 or a double 0, and I also stayed at that size for about a year. So theoretically, I could have been at a larger size by now, but it's not a race or anything, so I'm not too concerned with it. My goal size, if anybody is wondering, is 2 inches. So stretching your ears is exactly that. It is making the teeny tiny little hole that your ears are pierced at, which is, it could be a 20 gauge to a 14 gauge. It's generally an 18 or a 16 though, and it's just the process of making that hole larger. I'm going to first touch on how to stretch your ears, and there are a couple different ways. Not all of them are good, but I'm still going to talk about them and tell you why you shouldn't do them, and you can either heed my warning or not. So the first method is my preferred method, and I think the preferred method, and that is taping, not to be confused with tapering. So the taping method is where you take a non-adhesive tape, like bondage tape, which is what I have here. Bondage tape has no glue on it, so it's not sticking to my fingers here at all, and it only sticks to itself. So, like that. Now, bondage tape is made for your body, which is why I like to use it. Another non-adhesive tape is Teflon tape. Some people use that. Again, this is made for your body, and that's why I like to use it. You can get this either in store, if you so choose, or you can get this online. I got mine off Amazon, and it's not expensive at all. So this is where you take a piece of tape, and obviously you would cut it down to the width of your jewelry. What you do is you take it and you put a layer around your jewelry, just one layer, and then you put it back in and wait, I would say at least a week. Depends on your body. It might be, 7 to 8 days, maybe only like 5 to 6 days. I would say wait a week, and then what you do is you put another layer on, and then another layer, and another layer, and eventually it gradually stretches your ear up to the next size. And that is why this is the preferred method, is because it very gradually stretches your ears. And then every so often, I want to say every other layer, every 2 layers that you do want to change all the layers to a new piece, because while you're putting on a fresh layer on top of the previous layer, dead skin cells will kind of build up in there, and then maybe anything else, maybe if you use a lot of hairspray. And the key thing is keeping your ears clean. And the reason that you want to use a non-adhesive tape, which is a non-glue based tape, is because anything like electrical tape, I know people use that, because it is thick. You will notice that this tape is very, very thin. There's a reason for that. You want to gradually stretch. But an adhesive tape, the glue will harbor bacteria, and it gets really gross and gunky and gummy, especially if they get wet, whether in the shower or anything. It gets really, really gross, and the glue starts to like ooze and migrate, and it's just not a clean place for your ears. The next method is tapering, and this is really preferred for the smaller sizes because it's really only practical for the smaller sizes. And if you've been with me for a while, this is one of the tapers that I've used to stretch my septum. It's kind of an ice pick shape. The top here, the thicker end, is the ending gauge that you would be at, and then this really thin end is where you would insert it. Now this is good for the smaller sizes because you can see you can't really fit a layer of tape around this. And this is practical to use till about a 0 or a double 0 gauge, and you basically just want to use a taper until you're big enough to put a layer of tape around it. Now, tapers are not jewelry. They are not jewelry. They are only to stretch with. You do not leave this thing in, stretch with it, and then take your jewelry and push it through that. If you continue to stretch with tapers, the bigger you go, or wear them as jewelry, it causes an uneven weight distribution. and it might hinder you stretching larger in the future. So you stretch with this at a smaller size, and then you put your jewelry in. And of course, with both of these methods, you want to make sure that you oil up your ear first so that it's lubricated. You don't just want to dry stretch it, and I will talk about that later. The bad ways of stretching, don't do this, but I'm going to tell you anyways, just so you know not to do that, just in case somebody tells you, oh, you can stretch faster this way. Don't do it. So a silicone stretch is when you take a silicone plug or an eyelet, and you know silicone's very squishy and rubbery. It's where you take the next size up, so in my case it would be 7/8, and you take it, put it in your current size, which is 3/4, squish it in, and then let it expand. And what that does is it expands and stretches your ear, because it stretches your ear way too fast, and it can cause trauma or tears, bleeding, bacteria, bad stuff. Do not do this method, and I've seen people do this method, and if you do it or your friend did it and they were fine, it doesn't mean that you should do it. I'm gonna be a mother. If your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it? Maybe, but maybe you shouldn't. So yeah, don't do that. It is very bad for your ears. And then the next method is a pincher, and a pincher is a half-moon shaped jewelry. I've seen it in ears and I've seen it in septums. And basically, I'm going to show on my septum, it starts off thin down here, and then at the top where it would rest in the piercing is the thickness, the gauge that you would be at, and then it goes down to a very thin end like this at the other end. Now, you don't want to stretch like that, because while it's kind of like a taper, the distance from the starting point to the ending gauge is not a long enough distance, and you could, again, shock your ears. So a taper has all this room here, so, and you don't shove them through, which I didn't mention, but I'm going to tell you now, you do not shove them through. You would push it through slowly, but look at all that space there, and it gradually gets bigger. A pincher goes from basically the small point, the starting point, to the thickness in not enough time, and you can shock your ears the exact same way as I just explained for the silicone method. So next I'm going to talk about jewelry. What you can wear is either a plug, which is a closed jewelry like this, or an eyelet, which is the proper name for tunnel, and that is the see-through jewelry like this. Now the different materials are metals, which would be steel or titanium or something like that. There is also acrylic, which is plastic. There's wood, there's bone, there's glass, there's silicone, which would, I don't know if it's really in with the acrylics, but it is plastic, so I guess so. So that is the jewelry that you can wear. The next thing is you want to avoid porous jewelry, and porous would be any, I know wood is porous, and then any acrylic or silicone, because the bacteria can seep in there, and what you would want to wear is metal for a stretch and a fresh stretch. And then I would recommend waiting about a month until you can go and change your jewelry to a different material. And then the last portion of this little segment here, how long to wait, I don't know where I got that from, is the bigger you go, the longer you'll have to wait. Makes sense, right? So at any size, at least wait a month. So the bigger you go, the longer you should wait, maybe an extra month. So once you start getting into fractions of an inch, and what that is any bigger than a 00. So anything before a 00, so 0, a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. are gauges. That's the gauge size. And then any bigger than that, so after 00 is 7/16, that's 7/16 of an inch. And then, I mean, obviously if you're bigger than an inch, you'd be an inch and a fraction of another inch. So yeah, that is what a gauge is anything smaller than a 00 gauge. And that is when you use the term gauge. Gauge is not synonymous with stretching. It doesn't even make sense. That would be like saying a millimeter in my ears. So back to where I was, rewinding it. Wait at least a month in between stretches, at least. Once you start getting into fractions of an inch and larger, it would be your best bet to wait longer than a month, but your ears will let you know. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, first of all, everybody's body is different. So if at any point while you're stretching you feel any pain, stretching your ears is not supposed to hurt. The most common question I get, did that hurt? Okay, if it hurt, you're doing it wrong. And sometimes people mistake stretching pain for real pain. If it's a little teeny little bit uncomfortable, not even uncomfortable, that's normal. But if at any point you feel legit pain, you feel any burning, which would be your ears tearing, if at any point there's swelling or your ears get really hot to the touch and then it'd be pink or red or something, and especially if they start bleeding, it means you stretched way too fast. Doesn't matter how long you waited, you stretched too fast and your ears were not ready. If there's no blood, what you would do is take them out, let them rest overnight, and go back to the previous size and, massage them really well, which I will get to. If there's blood, that means you tore something. That's not good. Bacteria can get into it and you can get infected. Again, take your jewelry out, and again, I would leave it out for that day, night. Depending how severe it is, you might want to leave it out for longer. And you want to do a sea salt soak, which is where you boil water, make sure it's clean, wait till it cools down, and then you add sea salt to it and make a solution, and you would just fill it in a cup and dip your ear in there just to help clean it. After that, again, leave it out. You want to massage it, not hard. Do not put a lot of pressure on it because I'm sure it will hurt. And then go back and put your smaller jewelry in. I would suggest putting in 2 sizes smaller in, just so your ears can shrink back down really nicely and thicken up and heal nice. So just to review, any pain, burning, which could also feel like tearing, depending on how you want to word that, swollenness, redness, or bleeding, and especially if it feels like you have to shove it through and if it feels like you have to forcefully do it, that is your warning sign for the rest of these warning bad signs, and you want to stop right there and put your previous size back in. The very last thing that I want to talk about with you is the aftercare. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the oil that I have previously mentioned. And when you're stretching, you want to make sure your ears are oiled and lubricated because you don't want to dry stretch. And you also want to make sure that every single day, you massage your lobes. The oil that you can use, I have jojoba oil, like that. There's also vitamin E oil, and then there's emu oil, which isn't vegan, but if you're not concerned about that, there's an option for you. Now, what massaging does is, first of all, it helps blood flow to your earlobes because there's not a lot of circulation going on in your ears. Doesn't matter how big you are or how small you want to massage them. And it can also help thicken up your lobes. Now, other ways to thicken up your lobes, sleep with them out. I always sleep with mine out. And it's really good to do that. I know a lot of people are scared to have them out ever because they think they'll like size back down immediately. No, they will size down the tiniest bit, and when you wake up and massage them and put your jewelry back in, it'll be fine. If they're too thin, once you get to a certain size, you won't be able to stretch anymore without them snapping, which can happen, and you need surgery to fix that. Another good thing is to shower with them out because then you can clean your lobes as you're cleaning the rest of your body, and then you want to make sure that you oil them right after you get out of the shower because you are very cold once you get out of the shower. That is not good for your lobes, especially because you want to keep the circulation flowing. Segueing into keeping them warm in the winter, same thing, you want to keep them warm, keep the blood flow going. Wear a hood or the hats with the ear flaps on them. Earmuffs work. Another thing that might be good is getting a pair of acrylic plugs for the winter to wear when you're going outside. Acrylic does not get as cold as steel. Now, just because you're wearing acrylic doesn't mean that you don't have to wear the ear flaps or the earmuffs or anything. You still have to keep them warm, but this will just help. You can totally get frostbite on your earlobes, and nobody want to deal with that. And then I think the very last thing is just keep everything clean. Keep your jewelry clean, keep your ears clean. Another thing is, I know a lot of people who don't take care of their ears, maybe they don't know how to. Keeping your jewelry and your ears clean and daily massaging will help eliminate the smell. Everybody knows the smell, okay? I mean, I didn't start stretching my ears knowing what I was doing, so everybody knows that kind of nasty smell. That's because of the dead skin cells that build up there and they just kind of sit there. BodyArtForms.com is a very reputable place to buy your jewelry or your oil or stuff like that. Also, I know King's Body Jewelry has jewelry. Try to stay away from the Hot Topic or the Spencer's jewelry. Cool thing about Body Art Forms is that when you order, you can choose to get a gauge card. A gauge card has all the sizes here, and I will just hold this up for a minute so you can maybe pause and take a look. So it has all the sizes on the front, both in millimeters and in gauges or fractions of an inch. And then on the back it has all the terms for your jewelry right here. And then it also has the bigger sizes here, and then the millimeter scale down there. So you can pause that, take a look at it. I hope it's coming through well. I think that is all I have to say though. Of course, if you have any further questions, ask me down below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability, or if I can't answer them, I will tell you to go to a reputable piercer to answer them. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter or Tumblr. I'm a real hootenanny, I swear. Or you can ask me a question on AskFM about this or anything else. All at Blend Tea. I will link them all down below. And if you like this video, you can like it. And if you really like this, you can subscribe, because that would be very much appreciated. I put out videos every Monday and Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Monday. Bye! So the first thing I'm going to do is take a drink because my voice is not working. Oh god, this is cold. This can only end badly.